Well, hey there, this is Seth from the REtipster blog, and in this short video today, I want to show you a really quick and easy way that you can create an operating agreement for an LLC. So if you're running your own business and if you have your own LLC, chances are at some point you're going to have to create this document. A lot of times banks or lenders will have to see this kind of paperwork in order to verify that you actually have control over your LLC, or if your LLC is owned by multiple people, the operating agreement kind of helps spell out who owns it, who has the control, who makes the profit, when the profits get distributed. Really, a lot of potential things can be baked into this document. But for a lot of reasons, it's an important thing to have, and it's actually a good idea to create this at the time that you register your LLC, so that from day one, this document exists and just spells out all the details about who has the control in the company. So if you've got a company that just has one individual, maybe it's just you and that's it, this is going to be a pretty simple process. But if you've got a LLC that has maybe you and your spouse, or maybe you and another business partner, or maybe you and 10 other people, then this document gets even more important to put together and to get right. And before we dive into this, I'll just say I'm not an attorney, so this is definitely something where, if you have any confusion about it, you should definitely be talking with an attorney just to make sure they can inform you of all the specifics and issues to watch out for, because they can definitely be there. But if you've got a fairly simple situation and you're confident that you know how to do this yourself, I'm going to show you how to do it with a service here called a RocketLawyer. And I've been using RocketLawyer for several months now for a lot of different things in my business. And I've just found it to be by far the easiest way to create these kinds of forms on your own, if that's what you want to do. Now, this site is definitely not a substitute for legal advice, so just keep that in mind. You are kind of taking some risk into your own hands if you're doing this yourself. But in a lot of situations, like for example, I have an LLC where I am the sole owner of that LLC and there's just nobody else involved. That's a very cut and dry, straightforward kind of situation. So I would totally be comfortable using this for somebody like myself. But if this is something that you want to try to put together, it's very quick. It's not hard at all. Let me just show you how this works. And if you want to create one yourself, there's a link beneath this video and you can check that out and it'll take you right to this exact same page that you're seeing here on the screen. When you first get to the RocketLawyer website, you're going to see a page that looks something like this. And in this situation, I'm just going to put together an operating agreement for a fictitious company. I'm going to put 2 people in this LLC just so you can get an idea for how the process can go when you have more than just one person involved. And again, this is something that is different in every scenario, so I'm not necessarily saying you need to be filling out these exact same pieces of information that I am. This is just one possibility if there are 2 individuals involved. So let's say that this company is in, Nebraska. We'll just pick one at random. And then the first question is, what is the name of the limited liability company? Well, let's just call it ABC Company. And then we'll hit continue. And then where is the LLC being formed? Go ahead and say Nebraska. Continue again. What date will the LLC operating agreement take effect? Well, let's just say in this case, January 1, 2017. And I'm really just picking that because it's the first day of the year. I would say generally you would pick whatever the date is that you're registering for your LLC, or whatever today's date is. It's really kind of up to you. Just whatever rules you want to be in place from that day forward, that's the date you would pick. And we'll hit continue. And then enter the name of one of the members. We'll say the first one is John Smith. Continue. And in this situation, we're going to say that there are 2 individuals, John Smith and Jane Smith. And at the time of forming this company, they're both going to be injecting an equal amount of cash so that they both own 50% of the entity. So we'll say that John is putting in cash and he's going to be putting in $1,000. And then he's also going to own 50%. And then we're going to add another member here. This one is going to be Jane Smith. And these people could be husband and wife, or they could just be, individuals that are not married. We'll say cash for her as well. And $1,000. Continue. Percentage ownership, 50%. Okay, so now we've got our 2 individuals in there. Then what is the primary address for the LLC? We'll just make one up here. And then we'll hit continue. Then what is the name and address of the LLC's registered agent? So just a quick explanation on what this means. The registered agent does not necessarily mean that this person has any control over the LLC. It just means that this is the person who sent in the original registration for the LLC in that state. So in a lot of states, when you go to their statewide business entity search on the state government website, you can search for the business name, and it'll usually tell you the name of the registered agent, which is the person who filed for the paperwork in the first place. So this does not necessarily need to be John Smith or Jane Smith. And in a lot of situations, say if you wanted to protect your privacy and not display either your personal name or your business address when people go ahead and search for your business name like this, you can actually do that through RocketLawyer. They have a registered agent service where you can pay them to act as your registered agent. So if somebody ever searches for your company, it's not going to show your name and address, it's going to show their name and address. So it's kind of a nice little privacy protection thing if that's something you want to do. I'll have a link to that service beneath this video as well, so be sure to check that out if that's something you're interested in for any reason. But if you're not, let's just say in this case, John Smith is fine with having his own name on there and his own address. He would just go ahead and put this in here like this, and then his business address as well, whatever that is. And then we'll hit continue. And then the purpose. This is basically where you just outline whatever the point of the company is, whatever they do, whatever service or product they provide. I guess, for example, I run a real estate investing business where I buy and sell land. So in my case, I could say real estate investing company specializing in vacant land or something like that. And I literally just made that up on the spot. It's just kind of your chance to explain whatever it is the purpose of your business is. So once that's in there, we'll hit continue. And then for how long will the LLC operate? In my case, I mean, whenever I've created an LLC, I've never had like a planned end date when that LLC would end. I would always just click this top one here for it to operate indefinitely. So that's what I would do, but it's obviously up to you. If you have different plans, you can specify that here. And then has or will the LLC elect corporate tax treatment from the IRS? So basically, this is kind of getting into like tax expertise, which I don't have a lot of, but it is possible to have your LLC taxed as a corporation, which basically just means there's different tax consequences, which may or may not benefit you depending on your business model and the way your business works. So this is definitely something you'll probably want to talk to a CPA if you're going to do something special here. In my case, I've never done this kind of thing. I just get taxed as an LLC, so I would just click no in my case. And then how will decisions be made by the members? And this is where you can specify which individuals have the power to make decisions for the company based on their voting rights. And in the vast majority of cases, most companies choose one of these two options here, where either all decisions will require a majority vote based on the percentage of ownership. And in this case, you have two 50-50 owners who have equal voting power in that case. Or you could also set it up so that, say if it was a 51-49 ownership, where one person clearly had more ownership than the other, but you still wanted them to have equal voting rights. In that case, you could click this second one. Just for the case of this example, I'll leave this top one checked, go from there. And then how often will the LLC distribute the LLC's profits to the members? This is totally up to the user to decide this. Just like looking at my LLC, for example, I do mine monthly, but I know people who do it annually and quarterly and all kinds of different setups. So that's totally up to you. Will the LLC be managed by members or managers? And this is kind of like if you wanted to put one individual in charge of everything. Say if we wanted to put John Smith in charge and name him the manager, then he would kind of just be the manager of the company. But you could also just leave him a member as well. And then Jane Smith would also be a member. So they kind of just like work it together and there's not one presiding power. So again, it's totally up to you, however you want to do it. In this case, we'll just say that John Smith is the manager and we'll click this bottom one here. And then will the LLC appoint officers such as president, secretary, or treasurer? If you've got a big LLC with lots of individuals involved, you could totally do this. I'm not going to here. I'm just going to click no. And then when will the LLC's fiscal year end? This is like the end of the year for tax purposes. So all of my LLCs, for example, just end in December, just like everything else would. But there are some people who, for whatever reason, will choose different times of the year. It's totally up to you. I think a lot of people will just choose December just because that's the normal way most people do it. So that's what I'm going to click there. Click continue. If a member withdraws from the LLC, how many days will the LLC have to buy the withdrawn membership interest and split it among all the members? I'm just going to pick 30 days here. Just seems like a nice, easy number to work with. And then how will a withdrawing member's membership interest be split? You can either have it be equally between the remaining members or proportionally between the remaining members. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as equal. And then if the LLC members choose not to buy the withdrawn membership interest together, how many days will be given for an individual member to buy the withdrawn membership interest after the joint buyout days have expired? I'm just going to go with another 30 days here. And then what vote will be required to dissolve the LLC? And you can either make it be majority, so whoever collectively owns the majority of the LLC, or you can make it unanimous so that basically everybody must agree or the LLC is not dissolved. I guess just for this example, I will go with majority. That's all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward. RocketLawyer is now generating my document. And one thing to keep in mind, an operating agreement essentially means nothing until the document is signed by both owners. So just keep that in mind. You can totally create this document, but if it doesn't have a signature, then it just doesn't mean anything. It's just a random document with nobody agreeing to anything. So if you're working with a bank or anybody who's trying to verify who has the control of your LLC, you're definitely going to have to sign this thing before you send this to them, because without a signature, it doesn't really tell them anything because it's not verified by the actual signers. And RocketLawyer makes it pretty easy. You can just sign it right here online, or if you want, you can go ahead and download an unsigned copy as like a PDF or a Word document. Say if you want to get in here and edit this after the fact, you could do that too. We'll just go ahead and get the PDF, and then here we have it. So just a pretty basic, straight up template type document. And, you know, I've gotten templates from other websites before in the past, and those can totally work too. It's just that they don't make it nearly as easy as a RocketLawyer does, because you kind of have to hunt through the Word document and make sure you're hitting everything. Whereas with RocketLawyer, it's like you can't really miss anything without knowing it, because it asks you these questions one by one. And as long as you can answer those questions, it will create the document and insert all the relevant information exactly where it's supposed to go. So there's a lot less guesswork involved, and I just think it makes it way, way, way easier. So again, that's how RocketLawyer works. There's definitely other options out there. This is not the only way to get the job done. Or you could also go and hire an attorney and pay them hundreds, if not thousands, to do pretty much the same thing. And sometimes that's totally appropriate if you have a very complicated ownership structure in your LLC and you need to get really specific about who can do what. Then I think an attorney can totally be a viable way to get this done. But if it's a fairly simple structure and you're confident with how that's supposed to be set up and you're willing to do this work yourself, if you can even call that work, because as you can see, that was really easy what I just did. But if you want to tackle this yourself, RocketLawyer is an awesome way to do it. The pricing for RocketLawyer is pretty cheap. It's actually set up as a monthly subscription, or you can also sign up for an annual subscription if you know you're going to be using it again and again and again. If this is the kind of thing where you just need to create one document and that's it, you can totally sign up for just a month and then be done with it. Or if it's something that you're going to be going back to over and over again like I do, then one of these subscription options can make a lot of sense. And either way, if you're going to be using it repeatedly, it will be way, way cheaper than working with an attorney, especially if you don't really need an attorney for a fairly simple document that you're trying to create. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful and hopefully that all makes sense. Again, I use RocketLawyer for tons of stuff, including deeds, land contracts, deeds of trust, promissory notes, this kind of thing. They just offer a ton of different services and products that can make your life way, way easier. So if this kind of thing looks like it could be useful to you, be sure to sign up. Again, I have an affiliate link beneath this video, and I will get a small commission if you sign up through that link. Obviously, don't feel any pressure. I'm not saying you need to do this. It's not a prerequisite to do what you're trying to do. I just think it can make the process way easier, and it's a great option just to be aware of. So thanks again for watching the video. Hopefully you found it helpful, and hopefully I'll see you soon.